problems, and failures in life. May my parents, siblings, teachers, friends, and relatives, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May those I meet in my everyday life, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May those that have ill will towards me or I have difficulty with, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May all beings arisen in these realms, either with consciousness or without, with form or without, with sensation or without, with consciousness or without, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. Now continue with thoughts of loving kindness until you hear the bell. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Reverend Kashanti, for leading the Metta meditation. Today, our Dhamma speaker is Reverend Kusala. So, he used to give a Dhamma talk since long time. He is also a good Dhamma speaker. So, I invite him to do the Dhamma talk right now.
Yeah. Okay, another Sunday, huh? Pretty soon, 2026. Damn, where does it all go? So today I'm going to talk about something that's rather interesting. I'm going to talk about Bodhi Day. Anybody heard of Bodhi Day? Okay, well, this will be your introduction then. So we have something called Vesak, which celebrates the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha. That by the lunar calendar, it's the full moon day of May. Bodhi Day is celebrating the enlightenment of the Buddha on December 8th. Now, why would we go from May to December to celebrate something that's pretty similar? It is because of a calendar change. In Japan, they went from the lunar calendar to the Gregorian calendar in 1862. And that's why Bodhi Day ends up on December 8th. So what is Bodhi Day? It's celebrating the enlightenment of the Buddha. And the enlightenment of the Buddha is a rare occurrence. It only happens every once in a while. This Buddha is the 27th Buddha on earth. And then we have, or he's the 28th Buddha on earth, and then we have the next one already lined up. And so it's rare to have a Buddha. What distinguishes a Buddha from an Arhat? An Arhat is someone who studies the teachings of the Buddha and achieves nirvana. And it is the same nirvana as the Buddha. But the difference between a Buddha and an Arahant is the Buddha did not have a teacher. When the previous Buddha died, Siddhartha Gautama was born on earth, rediscovered the path to nirvana, practiced, and reached the fruition. He became a Buddha. And then for 45 years, he taught the path to the end of suffering, to the end of karma, to the end of rebirth, and he called it nirvana. So this is what happened. It was a full moon night. He was in the forests of India, Nepal, in that area, and he sat down to meditate. And there's something called the 3 watches of the night. So the nighttime was dissected into 3, and it said in the first watch of the night, he became aware of his past lives. Now, a lot of people look at that as going, well, what does that mean? You know, I've never met anybody who validated past lives for me. I've heard people speaking about their past lives, but they were always sort of cool past lives, like princess or king or monarch, you know, but they weren't, you know, trash pickup people. You know, they weren't working in the parks. So, but in Buddhism, we have something called rebirth. So we're born time and time again. Now, in Hinduism, they have something called reincarnation, and they're born time and time again. And the difference between rebirth and reincarnation is rebirth does not require a soul. Reincarnation does. So the Buddha said, we may not have a soul, If you want one, that's cool, but that's not who you really are. And what migrates lifetime to lifetime in Buddhism is your karmic energy. So we create karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do. But he was able to look back at all his past lives and see how he progressed from each past life to the next one, and ultimately became the Buddha in his last life. So Siddhartha Gautama celebrated his last life as a Buddha. And he died at the age of 80, and you might ask yourself, well, how did he die? And the answer is food poisoning. Now, it's not profound way of passing out. I mean, you think about a special person dying, and there's lights and radiation, and people are crying and all that. And somebody offered him a meal, and it could have been mushrooms or pork, we're not sure. And he got food poisoning and he died. And can you imagine offering a meal to the Buddha, and then he dies because of the food you gave him, how you would feel? And the Buddha assured him, don't feel bad. You've given me a chance to end this lifetime. And now I can realize nirvana after death, parinirvana. Now, the funny part for me is as he was dying, he called his monks. His monks were with him because they always traveled together, and he called the monks around and said, I'm dying. Does anybody have a last question they'd like to ask before I go? And all the monks were silent. Nobody wanted to ask a question. And then he died. And then some of the monks said, well, I wonder what he would have said about this. I wonder what he meant when he said that. Of course, that's how it works. And after he died, a variety of schools of Buddhism arose, each saying this is what he meant. This is how he talked about it. So being able to look at your past lives is important in Buddhism, but that only happens in nirvana. And after he achieved nirvana and taught for 45 years, he was able to look at his students and see all their past lives. Now, can you imagine having a teacher that could share with you what you've done in all your past lives and what you need to do in your next lives to achieve nirvana? That'd be the best teacher you could ever have. So he left us with a legacy. He left us with a practice. He left us with something to do, the Buddhist path. Now, in the second watch of the night, he came to understanding karma and the Eightfold Path. Now, karma is really important on a couple levels. Number one, karma takes the place of a divine lawgiver. Now, we know that there is a deity that has defined right and wrong. And so we're supposed to follow the deity's instructions and not do the wrong and only do the right. But in Buddhism, we lack the divine lawgiver. And so karma is our guide. Karma says, depending on what you think, what you say, and what you do, you will either suffer more or suffer less. So we're not telling you you have to do it, but we are telling you if you do it, you're going to suffer more. So we have something called the 5 precepts, which allows us to use our karma to benefit our life and the lives of others. And just a refresher on the 5 precepts. I will not take life. I will not take what is not given. I will not indulge in sexual misconduct. I will not tell unskillful words or lies. I will avoid becoming intoxicated. So that's a way of using karma in a skillful way to suffer less. And then we can use the 5 precepts to help others as well. The first level is it helps us. The second level, it helps others. And rather than not taking life, now we encourage life. Rather than not taking what is not given, now we practice generosity and giving. Now, instead of committing sexual misconduct, we now look at it as a way of showing love and kindness in a committed relationship. Now, instead of lying and telling gossip or idle chatter, we use our language to generate loving kindness to everybody that wants to speak with us and come into dialogue or conversation. And the last one, no more intoxicants. Now we practice abstinence from intoxicants, and we have much more clarity. Clarity is important if you're meditating. Okay, so that's how the karma thing works. And then we have the Eightfold Path. He became aware of the Eightfold Path. He was able to put into words what he had done. So really, if you look at the Buddha's teachings, he never told you what you should do. He always told you what he did. This is what I did, this is how I did it, and this allowed me to achieve nirvana. And if you want to achieve nirvana, you can follow what I did. But I'm not telling you you have to. You know, you may not be in that place in your life where you realize how valuable nirvana is. You may not understand that every lifetime you have been reborn, you've always suffered and died at the end. And then you've been reborn again. And then you suffered and then you died at the end. And at some point, in all those lifetimes, you wake up to the fact that I never have to be reborn again if I achieve nirvana. So the Buddha did not teach us how not to die. The Buddha taught us how not to be reborn. And the Eightfold Path is what he did. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And those 8 path factors will allow you to realize nirvana. So we don't have to go anywhere. That's the deal. You don't have to move to India and join an ashram, because nirvana is a change of mind. It's not a change of place. And you will still have a sore back and bad knees, but you'll have a perfect consciousness. Very cool. And we realize, looking at the daily news, how rare perfect consciousness is. Now, in the third watch of the night, he realized that the Eightfold Path fit into the Noble Eightfold, in the Four Noble Truths. Eightfold Path fits into the Four Noble Truths. And then he realized nirvana. Okay, so what are the Four Noble Truths? Number one, the first truth is, life is ultimately unsatisfactory. No matter how much money you have, or where you live, or how good you look, or what kind of car you drive, eventually life will become unsatisfactory. It might be misunderstood in that life is always unsatisfactory, but that's not the case. There are plenty of wonderful events that occur in everyone's life. But the problem with those events is they are temporary and subject to change without notice. And once they change, we are disappointed and we suffer. So anything that you look at eventually has the potential of turning into suffering. It sounds pessimistic, and if he had stopped there, it would definitely be pessimistic. But he continued. He said, I have figured out the reason why we suffer. And it's craving, it's attachment, it's clinging, it's wanting to push away the bad and hold on to the good. Those kind of desires that manifests in every human being ultimately creates our suffering. Then he said, I found the answer. The answer and the way to the answer is the Noble Eightfold Path. And the answer I found was nirvana. Now, he never went into great detail about what nirvana is. But there are some characteristics. Number one, when you achieve nirvana, you'll never have to suffer again. And if you achieve nirvana after death, it's called parinirvana. So when you achieve nirvana while you're alive and you die, you go into parinirvana, and he never explained what that is. So it's up to you to find out. And the only way you're going to find out is to achieve nirvana. The second aspect of nirvana is it ends your karma. You will not be able to create karma in the way you think, in the way you speak, in the way you act. But you are still subject to the consequences of the past karma. And there's a story about the Buddha and his cousin Devadatta, and Devadatta pushed this big boulder down a hill, and the boulder crashed into 1,000 pieces at the bottom of the hill, and one of the splinters cut the Buddha's foot. Now, it said you can't kill a Buddha, but you can wound a Buddha. And so that splinter wounded the Buddha's foot. And why did that happen? Because of some past karma in a past life. And the consequences were not eradicated when he achieved nirvana. And the third aspect is you'll never have to be reborn again. Now, most of us don't remember any of our rebirths, so it doesn't seem like a big deal. But if we follow Buddhism and follow the idea of afterlife, we have been reborn many, many times. And assuredly, we have suffered in each one of those lifetimes. And more importantly, we have died. And the church I spoke at last Sunday was the Pacific Unitarian Universalist Church in Palos Verdes, Rancho Palos Verdes. Beautiful church, very nice, wonderful people. A lot of them are gray-haired. And every couple months, they gather at the church and have a death cafe. And what they talk about is death. They keep talking about death every couple months. Because it's inevitable. We're all going to find ourselves at death's door one day. And it's bound to open. Guaranteed to open. Come, join us. Join us with all the other dead people. Since the beginning of our planet. We have the animals, we have the humans, we have the birds, we've got all unbelievable. Everything dies. Right now we got 8 billion people on Earth. And in 100 years, almost all of them will be dead. And once that 8 billion dies, we'll probably have 9 billion after that. And then we may get into 10 billion. It's hard to keep those humans happy. They're only happy if they're procreating, enjoying. You know? So, to digress a little bit, I gave a talk yesterday at Leisure World in Seal Beach. A bunch of gray-haired people there too. And we were talking about death. And I said, nobody dies well. And they were all surprised. What does that mean, that nobody dies well? Well, Ram Dass said, in the beginning of our life, we are in somebody training. We're training to be somebody. And in the end of our life, we're in nobody training. We are training to be nobody. So we can all die well. And what does that mean? That means that we have to do a little bit of work on self. Because self doesn't exist in the way we think it does. And there's something called the 5 aggregates that defines who we are, and more importantly, what we are. And none of them include a self. So what are the 5 aggregates? Number 1, form. We have form. We all have form. And no 2 people have the same form unless you're a twin, but even then there are probably some differences. And when this form contacts the form in the world, something happens. Sensation. Pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation, neutral sensation. So we form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. And now we have form and sensation, which leads to perception, which is just the miracle of being a human being. Only humans have the kind of perception that we have. Only humans can construct the world completely in their head. That none of that stuff out there exists without it being in our head. And if we go unconscious rather than conscious, all that stuff disappears. We can't see it. We can't feel it. Can't touch it. So everything out there started in our head. Wow. Blows my mind. So we have form, sensation, perception, and now we have volition, which is the karmic activity of thinking, speaking, and acting. So our perception defines how we respond and relate to the world out there that's really in here. And we can like it, we can dislike it, we can find the magic, we can miss the magic. We can do a lot of things and react to it and respond to it. And that's how we know that we exist. Because we're interdependent and we're relating to everything around us. Now that gives us the illusion of a person, the illusion of a self. And that's difficult to get rid of. And we shouldn't get rid of it. We need the self. It's limited, it's relative, it's not ultimate. But Ram Dass once said, you know, it's good to have spiritual experiences and see the bright lights and color flashing, but don't forget your zip code. Because we live in the relative reality of our everyday existence. And if we're lucky enough to find out how to meditate well, no, there actually isn't a good meditation, it's just meditation. We can have different kinds of experiences and never quite look at that reality the same again. It's a bit more transparent. We see the interconnection and interdependence we have with it. We see that we can manipulate it by a variety of means. Fascinating, fascinating. So we have form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. The last aggregate is consciousness. It should be looked at maybe as the first aggregate, but it's our awareness. That all our life only works if we have a level of awareness. If we're not aware, nothing happens. Unconscious. Even when we're sleeping, we have a sleeping consciousness. I know in my case, I like to dream. Sometimes they're in color. Sometimes there's discussion going on that sort of echoes through my head when I wake up in the morning. I'm going, wow, great dream. But I had to be conscious to have that dream. So I was in my sleep consciousness rather than my waking consciousness. And those 5 things working together create who we are. But there's nobody there. There's nobody there. So what I started off saying, nobody dies well. We can practice being nobody. So when our last breath is about to happen, we can go into deep state of meditation. We could see the 5 aggregates. We could understand that the only thing that doesn't want to die is the illusion of self. If you ask your right leg if it's afraid to die, it will remain silent. It will not say anything. If you ask your thumb if it's afraid to die, your thumb will not say anything. Our body doesn't know what life and death is. Our body just sort of is stimulated and does a lot of stuff all the time for no reason of its own, but because we have a consciousness who is directing it. Fascinating. So, when the Buddha died, did the Buddha die? Nobody died. He just never appeared again in the world. And the legacy that he left us is celebrated in the Mahayana tradition in some countries on December 8th, and we call it Bodhi Day, the day the Buddha woke up. There we go. That's a lot to take in 20 minutes. Does anybody have any questions, answers, or comments about what I said? Yes?
I have a question. It's not about this topic. It's actually one you did a couple months ago. It was when a Christian woman had asked you if Buddhists go to heaven.
Okay, Buddhists go to heaven, yeah.
And you were saying that some people can see Buddhism as religion, some see it as a practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of open to individual interpretation, but do you personally see it as a religion?
I'm sorry, and
Do you personally see it as a religion?
I do. I see it as a religion, and I see it as a lifestyle. Yeah, and is there a heaven? According to Buddhism, there is. Is there a hell? According to Buddhism, there is. And we go there by what we think, say, and do, not by what we believe. And there's no one that can do it for us, which is interesting. So, in looking at your practice, which is what Buddhism is often called, it's a Buddhist practice. It can be non-religious, it can be secular. There used to be a meditation center down the street called Against the Stream. And it was a secular Buddhist center. So they didn't get into the religious aspects as much as they did the meditation and practical aspects of living in the world skillfully and reducing their suffering and helping others reduce their suffering as well. So it can be looked at many different ways. And one way is not better than the other way, it's simply a different way.
Sure, but I am having a hard time convincing my very Catholic mother-in-law, Olivia, it as a religion.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't even worry about it. You'll never convince her. She's Catholic. And that's the religion. And so it's like, okay, and I'm part of the Monastic Interreligious Dialogue, which is an international conference. And I post on their Facebook page every day. And most of them, they're run by Catholics in Minnesota, St. John's Abbey, Collegeville, Minnesota. And the dialogues I've had with Catholics, the idea is when you go into dialogue with your mother-in-law, grandmother, whatever, is you don't want to defend Buddhism. You simply want to define Buddhism for her and let her be a good Catholic. Because we don't need any converts. It's okay. Buddhism is about our personal journey, and it's hard to talk people into a different personal journey than they're on if they haven't woken up to the fact that there may be a better journey available. So defining what Buddhism is to you allows the other person to say, well, that's interesting, but I'm glad I don't have to be a Buddhist. And then they can go back to being a Catholic. And sometimes you've got Catholic Buddhists. I know of a few Zen priests who are also Catholic priests. And they lead meditation and they talk about Zen Dharma. And then they go to church and they talk about the Christian Dharma. And it all works out fine. So there's a lot of crossover because what we're talking about is the human condition. The Catholics talk about that, and the Protestants talk about that, and the Jews and the Islamic faith talk about that. how to be a better human being. I was invited to give a talk at an Islamic celebration, Founders Day. It was called Founders Day. And I was invited to be one of the speakers. They had a variety of religions. And I thought to myself, what can I say to Muslims about Buddhism that they won't feel uncomfortable with? So I talked about the 5 precepts. I thought they'll be able to relate to that. The 5 precepts, how to be a good human being. It's fun. So after I gave my talk, they all appreciated what I had to say. Thank you for speaking about the 5 precepts. We understand what they are. We follow some of them ourselves. Okay, great. So we have some things in common, and then we have some things that are not in common. And that's what makes the world so much fun. And having relatives makes it fun too. Yeah. Maria.
So, in the past, the question has come up, if there is no self, then what is reborn? And I've heard you talk about Bhavanga consciousness, right?
Yeah.
So could you expand a little bit more on that? On what is Bhavanga consciousness?
Bhavanga consciousness? You know, I haven't talked about that for a long time. It's called Bhavanga consciousness.
Yes, okay.
I really can't go into detail right now. I hadn't planned on talking about it. So I haven't primed myself for it. But when you say what's being reborn, self, it turns out is simply a process, an ever-changing process that happens. So what's being reborn is karmic energy. And what did Einstein say about energy? He said you can't create it and you can't destroy it. You can only change it. So we have this energy that we've created over many lifetimes because of what we thought, said, and did, and we call it karmic energy. And when we die, it doesn't die with us because it can't be destroyed. So it now migrates to the next lifetime and begins the process all over again with brand new 5 aggregates, And so some people have a really good start. Some people have a not so good start. But all along the way, if you're aware of the power of karma, you're in charge of either having a good life, a mediocre life, or a poor life by what you think, say, and do. And I think that's why so many people go to school, because they realize that they can speak, act, and think differently with an education. And especially if you have a certificate that says you are smart. You can find work, unless you're looking for AI work, and it's all out there, So that's the thing I like about karma, is it too is always changing, and it too always gives us the possibility of being just a little more skillful, just a little better, just a little more aware, just a little more conscious.
Now I was just thinking of the value then of wishing everybody to be well, happy, free from suffering.
Yeah.
Because their karma and their rebirth and their karma will eventually, it affects everybody else.
Oh, done.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interconnection and interdependence, which is why the self cannot stand apart. It's always connected to the process of everything.
Yeah, and if their karmic choices make them be reborn as a serial killer, for instance, that's going to affect anybody who's living on the earth at the time.
Right. But there's something called the 5 niyamas. See, it's never easy.
Okay.
There's something called the 5 niyamas, the 5 reasons why stuff happens. And one of them is geographical, depending where you live. Like there was a tsunami in Thailand a couple years ago. But if you weren't living in Thailand, it didn't bother you. But if you were living in Thailand, it was a big deal. So we have these 5 causes, these 5 niyamas. Google will help you find out. And those 5 things together create why stuff happens. And one of those causes is karma. So it's not all karma, it's one of those causes. And you can extrapolate and say, everything happens in my life, but I'm only one of the conditions. I'm only one of the causes there are 999 other causes that blend with my cause that create what my experience is in this moment. So it's never just one thing. The Buddha never talked about one thing. He always talked about everything connected, which can be translated into one thing, but it doesn't give you any kind of individuality, because nothing can stand alone. Fascinating stuff. So it's an ongoing process thinking about Buddhism. The more you know, the more you don't know. But that's how the world works, isn't it? Just when you think you know it all, you don't know anything. And then you're really, really wise at that point. And people will be impressed by how much you don't know. But nobody will admit to it. Thank you for the question. Okay, yes, Steve.
About the definition of enlightenment, or not enlightenment, but nirvana, is cessation of suffering.
Right. And what's the definition of enlightenment? I draw a distinction between enlightenment and nirvana. So for me, nirvana is the end of suffering, the end of karma, and the end of all future rebirths. Enlightenment, on the other hand, which is encouraged in the Mahayana tradition, is having a personal experience of the interconnectedness and interdependence of all phenomena, where you have been blended into everything in this one ultimate moment. And then it closes down and you have to leave. So,
At one point, was asked how they should describe him. Disciples should describe him. And he responded that describe him as the one who woke up.
right.
Do you think that what he's saying that he woke up to was the interdependence?
No, I think he woke up to the fact that he had a direct perception of reality.
Could you flesh that out a little?
What's that?
Could you flesh that out a little? Direct?
Yeah, okay. So when we're talking about the five aggregates, we talked about perception. Okay, and what perception is a construct of everything we've learned and experienced and words. So every time you say the word chair, it blocks the reality of that form. Now you're not seeing that form, you're seeing a chair. And then the phone rings. And then it rings again. And then it rings again. Perception, no phone, just sound. We even know what his carrier is. But that's a concept too. So you see how all these concepts block out the direct experience of what we're in, what we're doing, what we're feeling. We only can see the concepts. And when you get past that and you see the direct result of reality, there's form and there's sound and there's light and there's darkness, but there's no chair and no car and no cell phone. See how that works? So enlightenment is having that direct experience without concepts, without perception. And that's going to change the way you relate to the world. You're going to see things a little differently after that. So that's what I think. Personal opinion. Does that make sense, Steve?
Well, I think I got to work in my enlightenment a little bit more, and it'll make more sense.
Okay. Okay. Well, even when you achieve enlightenment, you still have to suffer. And that's the inspiration for being a bodhisattva. For now you've enlightened, you've had that experience, and you see that everyone is suffering. And now you postpone your own nirvana in order to be of service to everyone who hasn't achieved it yet, which is most people. And then when the last person achieves their nirvana, then you accept yours. But theoretically, it probably won't happen. Because every time we lose 1,000 people, 2,000 people are born, and they're suffering now. So you solve one problem, and you got 2 more to go. And then you solve those 2, and now you got 4 more to go. And
It's like the myth of Sisyphus, where he's pushing the boulder up the hill. Well, yeah.
I can't hear you, Steve. You're mumbling.
It's like the myth of Sisyphus. You know, he's
Okay, yeah.
pushes the boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
And he had it knocked down again.
Yeah.
And as you go, re-push it up the hill.
Yeah.
But a human process like that.
That's the life of a bodhisattva. You're right. Good point. Okay, well, I think we have reached the end of our service. It is exactly 12:01. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trying to understand what the heck I was saying. And I'll turn it over.
Thank you very much, Reverend Kusala, for giving the Dhamma talk. Right now we have to chant the page number 4 and page number 10. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Dueling passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the free-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. thank you very much for leading the metta meditation, Reverend Kashanti, and also giving Dhamma talk, Reverend Kusala. Thank you very much. And then also thank you very much, our Dhamma friends, for being with us today for the meditation and also for the service. And also I want to announce something. Next Sunday, which is the second week of the December, our Dhamma speaker is Thai Maharjan. Please come and join for the Dhamma talk. Then you will be able to listen a very nice Dhamma talk that day also. And also that next Sunday also we have the morning meditation 10 o'clock. Please come and join. And then also I want to tell something. Last Sunday, last week, after the service, we clean our temple, the front and then back side, both side. So the most of our friends in Dhamma, they were helping me to do that, especially our Paul, and then our Tiffany and Erin and one lady, I don't remember her name, and all of you and our John, everybody you been helping me last Sunday for cleaning the temple and then also Panyalok also, and our Dhamma speakers Kashanti and Shraddha, they did a good job for this kind of the things for shining the brasso things. They did that one. Thank you very much for helping me to do that one also. And also, nowadays in our country, my country, Sri Lanka, the people, they are suffering, they are struggling because of the flooding. So they lost their houses, they lost their some parents, they lost their family members, they lost their clothes, they lost so many things. They are struggling, they are suffering right now. So on the behalf of the International Buddhist Meditation Center, we did some donation to Sri Lankan people, those who are the people suffering right now, under the leadership and under the guidance of the Abbot, International Buddhist Meditation Center, Heaven Pala Shantinayaka Thero, under the leadership of him and our some of friends, they helped me to do that one, especially my friend Benjamin Nori and our Russell and Nam Nguyen and our other friends in the Dhamma. They also helped and me also helped them. So we were able to send some money to Sri Lanka. They bought some groceries and stuff. They donate to the people who are suffering right now. And I really appreciate that one. Thank you very much for your kindness and compassion and your donation. So I really appreciate that. I want to tell that on the behalf of our International Buddhist Meditation Center. So by the power of these merits and wholesome activities and your loving kindness thoughts, I wish you at the end of we all are able to fulfill and achieve the bliss of supreme Nibbana liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.